Okay, so this is a national conversation, and this recording will be submitted to that national organization, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that and that program. Also, this video will go out to a couple of organizations that will show it to their youth and just get some discussion popping throughout this week on raising awareness of youth and HIV because it is very serious. I still have some more people coming in, so I'm just kind of chit-chatting. If you don't mind putting in the comment section your email address, drop in the comment section what county you're logging in from. And also, I'm going to ask one important thing for you today. I'm going to be dropping some posts in the comment section, and I would love for everyone to take at least one of those posts and share it to your social media community, because this is what this day is about. I decided to start having these conversations a little earlier just so everybody can take part in it. So whatever social media platform that you're connected with, I'm going to be dropping some posts that will maybe spark some conversation, that will maybe spark some debate, some discord, on social media, that will bring more awareness. So definitely thank you, Monique Khaleesi. She's a high school teacher in Michigan, and I apologize if I butchered that. I apologize.
That's
You
my
did
cousin.
good. You did good.
Thank you so much for joining. I
Oh,
appreciate that. Definitely drop your email in the comment section, and I'm asking for your email because I want to be able to send you some additional information, all of the resources that I'm going to present, all of the speakers. I would love for you to connect with them. So I'm going to put together a nice, good presentation and send that to you, and then you can put that out to your communities and you can have some discussions with your families. So once again, my name is Candace Smith, and I do have a special guest here with me today. He's here in Pasco County, and his name is Chris Mahan. And I am so excited to have him here today. We've connected a few years ago now, and we've worked together on a couple of community projects. And he has a podcast called Lead Your Team. And when I was putting this together, I'm like, Chris, you're the perfect person to come and speak today because you always have a lot to say to the parents. And if we're going to address the youth, how can we not talk to the parents and get their feedback and get their input? So I'm super, super excited to have you here today. And I do see some youth on here, and I would love to get some feedback from you guys. So definitely, I'm going to be presenting some questions. I would love for you all to give some quick feedback. Thank you so, so much for joining and tuning into this conversation. So let's go ahead and get started. This first part is just going to be an introduction, and I just have some facts to give. I have a few quick videos to show. They're very short. All of the videos that I'm going to show are very short, but I want to make sure that you understand why we have come together for today. So give me 1 second. I'm going to get this together to share my screen. I see some emails being put into the chat. Thank you. Thank you. And so let's start off with this. Today is April 10th, National Youth HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. And honestly, if you check your calendar, there's a month dedicated to bringing awareness to HIV. Every month, there's a day that we have these national conversations, and the purpose is just to get some discussion popping in the community and just to say, hey, what do you think about this? Where do you stand on this? And then begin to make some moves and changes in your life. So April 10th is National Youth HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, a day to raise awareness about the impact of HIV on young people. Together, we can help young people stay healthy by encouraging HIV testing, prevention, and treatment. Today is National Youth HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, a chance to learn about the impact of HIV on young people and work together to reduce the number of new HIV infections. How we talk about HIV matters. HIV stigma may discourage young people from getting tested, assessing prevention methods, disclosing their HIV status, and seeking care. The CDC recommends everyone aged 13 to 64 get tested for HIV at least once as a part of routine healthcare, encouraging young people to know their status gives them the information they need to stay healthy. This National Youth HIV and AIDS Awareness Day, learn about why investing in health education and services for youth is critical to ending HIV. Today, we recognize the impact of HIV on young people. Healthcare providers play an essential role in ending HIV stigma and helping youth stay healthy through HIV testing, prevention, and treatment. And so I don't want to leave anybody out. I know there's some youth on here. I know that there's some parents on here. There's some obviously educators on here. And so everybody plays a role in how everybody plays a role in bringing more awareness. So young people, how you can do that is just simply by not being afraid to talk about it, not being afraid to speak with your friends, especially if you know that they're sexually active, and asking them their status. If you love and care about them and there's somebody that you care about in your life, you want them to be safe. And not only that, you want to know your status for yourself. And so every year you go to the doctor and you have a health exam, and you don't feel bad when they're checking your eyes. You don't feel bad when they're checking your heart for whatever case, whatever causes. You don't feel bad when they're checking other various parts of your body to make sure that you're healthy. So in that same way, do not feel bad when you want to get tested for HIV or other STI diseases. Make sure that you know that you're healthy. Make sure that you know that you're okay. It's okay to go into your doctor's office and say, hey, I need to get tested for X, Y, and Z. I need to make sure that I'm being tested for that. And once you get the results, they will assist you with your next steps. If it's negative, you go on with continuing to practice safe sex practices, which is something we're going to discuss a little bit. And as well, if it becomes positive, that does not mean the end of your life. There are so many people living right here in our community with HIV. They're connected with resources that make sure that they're healthy and make sure that the people that they're in relationships with or that they will get in relationships with do not contract the disease. There's preventative measures that we're going to discuss later on today, as well as PrEP. I'm going to show a video that's going to discuss all of the advances in HIV that's out here. That's why we kind of don't hear a lot about it. But as a result of us not talking about it, there's been an uptake in new cases. And I'm also going to show a quick video discussing that. So let me jump into that because we're already 15 minutes after. And so I want to jump into a quick two videos. They're very short, but it's going to talk about what we're here for today. And it's also going to bring us up to speed on what's happening right here in Florida. So give me 1 second to pull all of this up. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to make as I'm pulling this up? You can just raise your hand and I'll go ahead and acknowledge you.
Everybody's shy today.
Everybody's shy today. That's totally fine. Okay, so here's our first video. Let me go ahead and maximize.
Here's something that will surprise you.
According to the CDC.
Can everybody hear that? Okay, I'm gonna start it over.
Here's something that will surprise you.
According to the CDC, 13 to 24-year-olds like me face a great risk for HIV.
And those of the Latinx and Black community have the highest risk.
Did you say kids as young as 13?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Today is National Youth HIV and AIDS Awareness Day.
It's a chance to discuss the connection between health education and the fight against HIV.
Too often, young people aren't the top of mind when it comes to HIV.
But today, we want to make our voices heard.
So here are a few things you need to know.
First off, schools play a huge role in reducing the youth risk for HIV in things like gonorrhea, syphilis, and chlamydia by teaching and supporting healthy behaviors.
Health education in schools should provide us with a safe and supportive environment to learn about HIV prevention.
However, across the United States of America, only 43% of high schools and only 1 in 5 middle schools teach HIV prevention.
Many sexual health education programs don't even acknowledge that LGBT young people exist.
And they do not speak to our real experiences.
That's unacceptable.
Over the last 10 years, the percentage of students who have had sex has declined, but so has condom use.
This puts more youth at risk for HIV, other STIs, and pregnancy.
And not all young people with HIV are getting the care they need.
Of young people with HIV, only 36% receive HIV care such as blood work and medicine they need to help fight the virus.
And only 25% were able to reach viral suppression, meaning their treatment helped them make the virus level low enough to keep them healthy and make sure they can't transmit the virus.
So, maybe you're asking yourself,
What can I do to end HIV?
Well, you can get tested for HIV every 3 to 6 months. You can use a condom.
You can even speak with your medical provider about PrEP, a daily pill that helps prevent HIV.
And you don't have to go alone. You can even bring a friend.
for more information about HIV testing and safe sex practices, go to hrc.org/HIV-AIDS.
For more information on how you can support LGBTQ youth, go to hrc.org/youth.
Okay, so that's the end of our first video. Does anybody have any thoughts? They really put a lot into that short 2-minute video discussing some of the connections between youth and HIV, discussing the medical aspect of it as far as not getting the correct treatment, as far as just talking about it and the stigma surrounding it. Anybody want to share their thoughts?
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm probably older than everybody in here. So I go back to the early 90s when Magic Johnson was my childhood hero. And in 90, I believe it was 91, November, it came out that he had contracted HIV. And in the mid 80s, AIDS was all over the place. It was only thought of as being in California or a certain type of group of people. So when Magic came out, it was huge, and it was a stigma that exploded because then we had some other people get HIV/AIDS, and we started having some celebrities start talking about it. But back then, just the idea of HIV/AIDS was absolutely a death sentence. Everyone, the stigma was probably bigger than anything you could think of today, even. Sports people were turning against Magic. The media was turning against him. And it was really, really hard to see that for me, because he was like my childhood god, basically. So now that he's still alive and things are going, I think it's amazing that we are finally able to talk about things and discuss things in a more open dialogue, because it is going to save some lives. It is going to change some families if something were to happen. I know that I know personally people right now that are living with HIV here in Florida, and they have a very productive life. But at the same time, without the proper education and the ability to talk about things openly like this, things can only get worse through fear and through just misunderstanding of what really is a fact versus just some media hype or some fear mongering from a certain few. So for me, I'm actually very glad, excuse me, to be part of this today, because when I was younger, I was in my early 20s when this happened. Although I met Magic a couple times, I went to his basketball camp. There's a little history there. It was just a fact that I was looking up to someone, and I saw what the media did to him. I can't imagine what a family would do to their own child or their community would do to them without the money and the fame. He had a lot to fall back on. So for me, I've seen several years, about 30 years now, of progression, which is a very good thing. So I just want to put that out there real quick.
Absolutely. I do remember that. Of course, I'm not a very big basketball player, but the men around me, the young men in my life, my brother, family, they were the same way. That was such a big fall from grace in their eyes that it was heartbreaking to kind of witness. And it was an introduction to a lot of us of HIV and AIDS. At first it was somebody else's issue or, this distant thing, but that brought it home for a lot of people, that it was serious and it was real, and it was something that honestly someone outside of the homosexual or gay community could get. And so it is, though, a testament to how far in advancement medicines and everything have come to see his life continue on, because so many people, were scared. They were scared.
Yeah.
I remember that fear of losing him, of seeing a decline in his health. I remember feeling that fear. So I don't know, do any of you all remember Magic Johnson? Do you all know him?
No.
Back in the day, you know who he is? Okay, so just to put it into perspective, imagine today LeBron James getting some sort of quote unquote death sentence. Okay, that's how the media portrayed it. That's how the sports world portrayed it, and it was all fear-based. And yes, it's a very bad thing. Nobody wants to get it, but back then it was an immediate death sentence, and it was an attack on your character. It was an attack on who you were. A lot of young children through blood transfusions got sick, and they were not gay. They were not even probably having sex. It was through medical blood transfusions. They got sick. I believe the boy's name was Ryan White, I believe, out of Indiana. And he was the first young person. I think he was like 14 years old. His entire community turned on him and his family. It was Hollywood that came out to support him. At his funeral was Elton John, Michael Jackson. I mean, I think even Princess Diana was there, if I'm not mistaken. So that's where we have come over the last 25, 30 years in terms of understanding what this disease is, this virus is, and how to get it and how to prevent it. And also that, it's clearly not the end of the world for everybody. I can't speak on that. I'm not a doctor, so I can't speak on it for every case. But clearly, through prevention and new medicines, people can have a more productive life. And that's incredible to me.
Yes. I want to ask the young people that's in here, is it surprising how early they're asking you all to begin testing for HIV to you all? Is that surprising?
They don't want to answer. They're like, no.
Yeah, they're like, okay, that's totally fine. It's okay. I did see a comment pop up. Let me see. how can I get to it? Okay, there we go. How are students in non-traditional virtual alternative school settings able to educate themselves on HIV/AIDS so they can make more informed decisions? That is such a wonderful question. I'm actually a homeschooling mom, and the young people that's in here are homeschooling students. And so there are small networks that we do things like this and communicate through. There is not really anything that's organized that I have been able to ever find that kind of addresses health, related things on a maybe even Florida basis, let alone national. There may be, but I have not in my 5-6 years of homeschooling been able to ever find that. I just know that there's a lot of community communication that goes on between parents that come together, and then they see that, okay, we're raising our kids together as teens. These are things we're coming across. Let's find some ways to address them when we don't know how to. And so we may stumble across some organization that's addressing it and put our children in it. And that's me speaking from as a homeschooling mom, that I've been introduced to programs like that from other homeschooling moms, and I've introduced other homeschooling moms to certain things that we're just like, we need to address this. They're not in school. They're not in any Florida-based state, anything for us to just go to them. We have to be detectives and find out and research and really look into, like, how can we address these things? And I'm happy about these things. That's why I send them to the youth organizations, even the churches, to say, bring them in on these discussions. This is the perfect time and opportunity to address it, have an open discussion where they can come in and feel comfortable, and then you can go back home and further have discussions without it being awkward. So thank you so much for that. That was a very good question. Let me see if I missed anything else. I got some emails in here. So what I'm gonna do right now really quick is drop in a few of the posts that I would love for you to share. They're gonna come with a link that will lead them back to a website to give them more information. All you have to do is copy and paste it. That's the first one. Copy and paste that, tweet it, share it out. I can give you some images if you would like some images to go with it, maybe for Instagram or whatever. And then I have a few more. So I have one more other video to show, and then I'm going to introduce Chris to come in. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull this video up really quick. This one is a little bit longer, but it's actually a news clip that gives an update on Florida. And I just thought that was very important. It does address the youth and HIV, and it's as recent as last year. So I'm going to share this really quick. It is like 4 minutes, but it's very impactful. So give me 1 second to pull everything up. And I'll start it. Let me know to make sure.
The nation in new HIV cases.
Can you all hear that?
Yep.
Perfect.
I can hear it.
Okay, I'll maximize it. Okay, thank you. Here we go.
New this morning, Florida now leads the nation in new HIV cases. That's according to a new report from the Centers for Disease Control. Nonprofits here in the Bay Area are taking action to get people tested. ABC Action News reporter Lauren Rosella shares the story of one long-term survivor and the reason he says young people need to be careful.
Was he the love of your life?
Definitely.
When Michael Toller first saw his future partner back in the mid-'80s, he knew.
I went up to him and asked him to dance, and that was it.
But then their love story cut short, both Michael and his partner receiving a devastating HIV diagnosis. He says back then that was most often an impending death sentence.
There were no meds. People shunned you.
His partner died just 12 months later, and Michael, grieving, moved to St. Pete. Today, he is especially concerned about the growing numbers of HIV cases across the Tampa Bay area.
Young people say, are carefree.
EPIC, a nonprofit with Empath Health, provides services to people impacted by HIV and AIDS throughout the Tampa Bay area.
HIV has been something that has been controllable for so long that's, I think, one of the reasons why we're seeing such an uptick in cases.
Now there is a huge push to get people tested for HIV across Hillsborough and Pinellas counties, and also connected to resources through nonprofits like this.
It is a prick of your finger. It is a blood drop. You get your results in a couple of minutes.
EPIC tells us getting tested and knowing if you have it is key, but also prevention.
It affects every aspect of your life if you're HIV positive.
While medications help manage HIV and AIDS, some have terrible side effects, as Michael can personally attest. He's now asking everyone to do what they can to prevent the spread of HIV. In Tampa, Lauren Rosella, ABC Action News.
Well, check out an in-depth story on abcactionnews.com to learn more about how treatment for HIV has improved dramatically over the years. New this morning.
Okay, so that's that. Thank you for sitting and watching that video. I just ran across it and I found it very ironic that it was even for the Tampa Bay area and Pinellas County, and also that organization. I've teamed up with them one time in Pinellas County where they were providing HIV/AIDS testing, and I was out there as well. And so they're another organization that's privately owned that's doing some of the same work, because these reports continue to come out with new data, new information, and it shows the increase in new cases here in Florida. And so it's just super important that we definitely, bring back more conversations and not just say, oh, well, there's treatments. Oh, well, the things are better than they were in the 80s, and in the 90s or whatever. So there's no need to worry. We can't ever do that. And so does anybody have any thoughts on the video? Anything popped out in it? Nope. Okay. Well, we're gonna move right along. I would love to bring on Mr. Lead Your Team podcast himself, Chris Mahan. I'm so excited to have you address the parents and really discuss, some ways that they can begin to have some meaningful conversations with their teen. And then we're going to come back and give the preventative measures. And if Miss Sylvia from MACA comes in, she'll share a few words, and then we'll be done with this noonday chat. So go ahead, Chris. Take it away.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here, Candace. I really appreciate the invite. For those of you who don't know me, I do have a podcast on Spotify called Lead Your Teen. And I'm writing a second book now. It's a youth empowerment leadership book for parents for their kids. And ironically, chapter 6 of this new book, which will be out soon, is on having hard discussions, and this being one of them. Many parents do not have hard discussions with their kids because of fear, or they just don't know how to start that conversation out of their own lack of education on what they're talking about. So they just kind of ignore it. A lot of other parents, they know there's a problem, but they are afraid to address it because they don't want to look bad. They don't want to cause a problem. And as a result of all of this, there's usually not very good outcomes. Either a catastrophic event happens and the parents say, oh, we knew this was happening, I should have done something. Or it's generational. When I grew up, we didn't talk about these things. When I grew up, this didn't happen. So therefore, I'm just going to ignore it. we cannot ignore the realities of today. We cannot ignore the realities of what's happening on social media any more than we can ignore the realities that young people, more and more, we're finding in studies, are engaging in activity. And it's very important to have these conversations early. I'm not saying go right into all the nitty gritty with an 8 or 9-year-old. You want to create these conversations on an age appropriate level. But by the time your teenager is in, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, 6th grade, they're seeing things, they're hearing things, they're already being exposed to a lot of things as it is. And both my boys were homeschooled, so I can tell you that that was a challenge to give them all of the things like Candace was saying about programs that might be in schools or whatnot. I know Monique asked a good question about that. And this is where, as a parent, you have to be the leader. You have to be the one, as Candace was saying, to be a detective, to go in and find out what's out there and educate yourself, because your children rely on you. You are the leader of these kids. You are their stopgap between all the bad things in the world. And I can tell you that I don't want to get too much into it, but I've had some really hard discussions with parents after some really bad things have happened with their kids. And in every one of those conversations, there was always that little voice in the back of their mind saying, I knew something was happening. I knew I should have said something. I don't know why I didn't, because now my son is addicted or my daughter is dead. Yes, I've had 15 post-suicide conversations for various reasons. A couple of those were because kids were gay, or they thought they were gay and the parents would accept them. And not having a hard discussion because of your own fear or your own inability to get that ball rolling is no excuse. It's just no excuse at all when it comes to the life of your child of any age, whether 13, 15, 22, 30. If they're doing something, you want to step in and say, listen, this is not going to be good for you. To bring back to Michigan State, the Magic Johnson moment, when he was at Michigan State, he was the Michael Jordan of his day. He was LeBron James of his day. And when I first met him in 1981 in my little town of Greenville, Michigan, he'd come to do a softball game. I thought I was looking at someone that was invincible. I thought I was looking at Superman. And so a couple of years later, when this came out, he had HIV, it scared me. I wasn't a real, crazy, go out and do all kinds of stuff person, but it did scare me, made me think. And having my two boys, I tell them, listen, this is life. This is what's going to happen. My two boys are 18, 21 now, but when they were your ages, 13, 12, 14, I did have conversations with them. And it wasn't always fun. It wasn't always easy. But now at 18 and 21, when they are out doing things and they're of those ages where I can't be with them all the time, the conversation freedom or the openness to speak freely with them is established because of the work that I put in when they were 12 and 13 and 14 years old. And this is probably one of the biggest challenges for parents today is they want to see what's on social media. They want to read what's in the paper, or they want to see the latest blurb on a newsroom and go, oh, that must be it. That's all I got to do. As a leader to your kids, it is absolutely imperative that, although I know Monique is a school teacher, I don't want to put the pressure on her or the teachers. It's not really the school's responsibility to educate your kids on those personal issues. I don't want to get too much into that because it's a political hot button with a lot of other things. But the fact is, if you have an issue with your son or daughter and wondering what's going on with them, who better to talk to them than some strange teacher or a counselor that hardly knows them? They're one of maybe 300 kids or one of 50 kids, or, and who's to say that school teacher or that administrator has all the answers? They don't. So as their parent, it is absolutely critical that you take the time to sit down with them, talk to a professional, talk to a medical professional, and figure out what's going to happen. Don't be afraid to buy condoms for them. Don't be afraid to tell them what's going on. Yes, it's a little embarrassing. It can be silly, but they're going to grow up. Your kids are going to become young adults. They're going to have urges. They're going to do things. We cannot hide that. So it's like if you were going to give them a driver's license, you would make sure they knew how to drive that car. They know how to be safe. Easy things that might be a little nerve-wracking for ourselves, but their lives are absolutely at stake with this, whether it's HIV/AIDS, whether it's telling them how to properly drive a car, not drink and drive, whether it's to, just be safe in other areas where they're with their friends. This is just one more conversation that we have to have in today's world. It's no different than talking to them about social media, online bullying, how to prevent those types of things. This is just one more of those conversations that we have to have. And if we don't have it, I can assure you that if something happens to your son or daughter, and you think to yourself, wow, I could have just said this, what was holding me back? That's a personal thing as a parent. So I would encourage you to talk to the professionals without your child to say, listen, how can I have this conversation? Can I sit in the room with you while you have it? Can I be there? What can we do? And for young people, I see you guys all kind of smiling at what's going on. This might be a little embarrassing for you too. You don't want to talk to your parents about certain things because it's embarrassing. But the fact is, as you get older, you're going to have a lot of embarrassing things happen in your life that you need that support system. You need that open line of communication. And most importantly, you need the trust between you and your parents to
Are you all
make sure
able
you
to
guys
hear?
are all making great conversations. Oh, you broke up there, Candace. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was having computer issues and it
Okay.
froze. I'm like, is it me? We talked about this Zoom thing.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yep. So you're saying a lot of really good things. And honestly, from a parent's perspective, that was in public school. My kids were in public school. I grew up going to public school. And I feel like there is a disconnect between the parents and teachers because I really thought about it because I couldn't understand it even for my own self. And when I really thought about why I was disconnected for a little bit, I feel like it was because I thought I would do things wrong. And it felt like if I did something wrong, I would be punished in some way, meaning with my children or something. So I would just say it's best that the teachers discuss this because if I get it wrong, I don't know. They've gone to school to know what it's for. And I really felt that way so strongly I neglected to address things with them. And it took, for me to kind of become a homeschooling mom to see, just get empowered, just feel empowered enough to know I can do it. I can address everything. And then another thing that you mentioned was, some issues are the parents being afraid, living in fear of, and it's kind of like from childhood, you're like, oh, when we got to give them the talk, what are we going to say? I remember sitting with girlfriends and like, our babies were babies, but we were dreading and scared and like, what are we going to say to them? We don't know what to say. And we said it up until it was time. Then it's scrambling like, oh my God, what do we do? But all you have to do is prepare like everything else, invest the time, invest the energy into that subject, get some books, YouTube, like now that I'm a homeschooling mom, nothing is off limits because I realize that there's so much out there. There's so much available to feed you, to give you the next steps. So you're not like, I don't know what to say to this child.
Well, it's all in my new book, so you can have it. I'll give you a free copy. How about that?
Definitely.
Now,
So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask something. Monique is a school teacher in Michigan. So you just mentioned, I did too, you mentioned the schools. Monique, as a school teacher,
Hello.
there she is. As a school teacher, what, how do you guys approach this? Do kids approach you for things? Do you hear things? How do you handle it in a school setting? These hard conversations.
That was actually going to be my question to you and Candace. That was going to be my question to you and Candace, Chris. Do you think parents rely on, I think this generation of kids are more comfortable with talking to teachers about things as opposed to when you and I were in school. I wouldn't have talked to my instructor about anything unless it had to do with school. But do you think parents and students rely on learning about things from social media, TikTok, other kids? Like parents just push that off as it's somebody else's responsibility. I mean, you've got to be careful too about what you talk to kids about at school. I'm not a counselor. So if students are starting to talk to me about what they're doing in their personal life, I mean, you sort of draw this fine line. So, I mean, counselors is what you said. They're swamped. There's one counselor to every 300 or 400 students in our district. So they're bogged down. But yeah, I'm curious as to whose responsibility is it to teach kids where to become informed? If the parents are saying they're going to learn it from somebody else, they're going to learn it from social media. Interesting to me. I don't know. What do you think parents think?
That's why I do my podcasts, and that's why I write books. That's why I've been working with kids for the last 10 years. I began working with young people to prevent teen suicide. That's how I got into all this. And so for me, it was parents talking about their kids about cutting, self-harm, drugs, sexual orientation that would lead them to become suicidal. And that was the whole start of my education to the side of things. Since then, I have worked with over 1,000 kids and young people as old as 24. And honestly, it is the parents' responsibility, no matter what generation, no matter what is out there. We chose to have these kids. We chose to keep them. We chose to make them our responsibility, and to pawn off certain things that we like or don't like in other people is really a disservice to our kids from us as parents. I believe that 100%. I don't care who I'm talking to. I'll tell them all that. A young person had no choice in who their parents are. Okay. They are in this world and we love them and we want to take care of them, we want to support them. But to pick and choose what conversation or what issue we want to deal with because it's hard for us is 100% not fair to a kid. It's not fair to a teacher who has 30, 35 kids in a classroom. We know what classrooms look like today. That's why I think all of us are homeschooling. And sorry, Monique, but schools are a little chaotic today. So it is the parents' responsibility. It's not yours. I don't believe it's yours. Yours is to teach them to be students and learn skills. Ours is to teach them about.
Right. Absolutely. I feel like we could have us a whole panel discussion on this. We need to definitely invite teachers, invite some parents, and, people that stand in the middle like you, Chris, you know what I mean, to just be on both sides, because I think there's definitely a big disconnect. There's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of misunderstandings that's generational on and in the past, there was a lot that the teacher was involved in a student's life. There was a lot teachers were involved in my life. For whatever reason, they just played a big role and had this big impact on certain areas of my life. And it is sometimes easier for students to talk to teachers. But again, it goes back to the parent-child relationship as to why that is even that way. Because now I think about consciously being that number one person in my kid's life. Even though at times it's like, I don't feel the best suited person to address certain things. I know that I have to be the most hands-on in the situation, even if I'm not the best person to address it. So I just think some open communication between teachers, you know, parents being able to listen, having some students being able to give some good input on what are things like now, because it's very different than what it was for us, you know, and they have a language of expressing their feelings that we never did. They have a lot more insight into their mental health and emotional state than we did. You know, I hear my son tell me something was, what's the YouTube word when they're watching something and it's soothing to them or something? He's 7 and he used that word like, oh, this is so, whatever that word is, that when they're watching like the ASMR, like the relaxing type videos, I'm like, how do you even know this terminology? But they have that terminology to express themselves where I would never be able to really say those things. But we only have a few more minutes, y'all. This has been such a great discussion. Like, and I know the young people probably won't say as much, but I really hope that some seeds are being planted and some conversations will continue to take place in the homes. I have a couple, like 2 more videos that I want to show because it really goes into preventative measures. And I want to talk about testing because that's the most important part. I definitely want to encourage you all to encourage others that's 13 and up to be tested. We've heard the facts, we've heard the statistics, we've heard the news reports. So we know it's real. And so it has to become real for us to address it. So I have 2 more videos. They're very short. And I just love the way they break it down. Just give me 1 second to pull this up because it's really going to break it down as far as from a humanistic perspective, preventative measures that's out here, then a scientific, so you could kind of get a really deep understanding. So I really want to share this. Give me 1 second to pull this up again. This video is less than 2 minutes, so I know we can get through it.
The first time I heard about PrEP blew my mind. To know that that was out there and an option for people, for couples, for single people, was the most exciting news I'd heard in a long time.
If you are at all at risk at exposing yourself to HIV, you should be on it. It's a game changer because it lowers your chances of contracting HIV, pretty much eliminates your chance. I know people who are in discordant relationships, discordant meaning one person has HIV and one person doesn't, and through PrEP and through treatment, they're not transmitting it to each other. And that is such a groundbreaking thing because it's not just HIV people having sex with each other. Like, it's not eliminating this whole pool of people who are living with HIV from, romantic relationships and sexual relationships. And it's no longer like an othering disease.
It's a daily ritual. It's the same thing as shaving and brushing my teeth and showering every day. This is something I do every day to protect myself, and it's something that a responsible me is going to keep doing.
I don't like taking pills, I don't. But this is something that can get us to 0 new infections. And this is, I think everybody should take it. Not just gay people, everybody. Straight people, women, men, black, white, purple. Everybody should be taking PrEP.
So that video was for PrEP, and I wanted to just go over a few preventative measures. Of course, the number one way to prevent the spread or yourself from contracting HIV and AIDS is to be abstinent. Is to not engage in any sex. You will not contract it through those means. There are still other ways, but through those means, you won't contract it. However, if you do engage in sexual intercourse, I encourage you to use a condom. And also to get tested before you enter into a new relationship. And if that relationship does not go as planned and you all break up, get tested again, get tested before you have another sexual encounter. And it is okay to share your status with people that you plan to have sex with. It's okay to say, well, hey, I've been tested at such and such time. I know that these are my results. How about you? And that's the easiest way to just get that conversation out of the way, or to just say, hey, let's go get tested together. Like, I've done that a couple of times in relationships where I'm like, let's just go get tested, and we find a location that we can go together that sparks other conversations about birth control, that just sparks healthy conversations that we should have regarding relationships. Because something that's so interesting is that, you know, we could slobber somebody down quick, but it's so terribly hard to say, when was the last time you got tested? And we got to switch that. It can't be where it's easier for us to come together in that way and difficult for us to discuss what our health status is and how we can affect each other's lives. And I say it because it's serious. The video really that I just showed really hampered on relationships. That's a big part of our lives, even as young people. You can't wait to fall in love. You can't wait for your first kiss. You can't wait for your first date. A lot of your life is geared towards being with someone. And even in that news clip, you could hear this man reflecting on his younger life of meeting the man of his dreams, and then all of those dreams being dashed away because they didn't know to protect themselves from HIV and AIDS. So it's so important. We got to address that. We want you to have good, meaningful relationships. We want you to experience the best of life and love, but we want you to do it safely and honestly. And to just say, because you even hear in the video that I've even met people that one person has HIV and the other person does not have HIV. And they live a life together, and it's very beautiful, but that can't happen without honesty. If you're not honest, what happens when you're dishonest is other news stories where the person has lost their life because they were in a relationship or they had a sexual encounter, and then that other person finds out you had HIV all of this time and you didn't tell me. And they feel their life is over. They feel it is gone. They can get sad, depressed, they can get angry and violent. And that's something you have to be aware of, that could happen. Also, you have to be aware that if you contract HIV and AIDS and you go on spreading it, you can also be convicted of a crime. That is a crime to do that. And so you have to be aware of these things as you're making decisions. You can't just say, well, this is my health, my privacy. When you're out here and you're getting into relationships, or, you know, you're just having fun, you still have to communicate these things. That's why no matter what, it's important, even from adolescence, even from youth, you begin to communicate with your parents. Communicate with people that care about you, that respect you, that want the best for you about your health, to make conscious and right decisions, thought out decisions. Don't wait until you get into that moment to be figuring out, how do I want to do this? If you say right here, right now, I'm going to make sure that before I do anything, I'm going to get tested, and that other person is going to be tested. If you set that boundary, you'll do that. When we see news reports that show in the media our area where we live in are high rates, that's a cause for concern. That's a cause for us to alter our actions a little bit and say, you know what, I got to do things differently. I can't throw caution to the wind. I can't just say, oh, I'll live for this moment. What do they say? YOLO. You only live once, you know, and that's a reason to just throw caution to the wind and have a good time. But that choice can impact the rest of your life. And that's what we want to make clear, because these drugs are very fascinating, because they can give you a second chance at life, but you also hear them talk about the side effects and how every aspect of your life will be altered. And I've seen that before as well. It's totally changing of your life. And so I hope that in this 1 hour, I know it was a lot that we discussed, but I hope that you were able to receive something impactful. And I hope that you will begin to start some discussion today. I'm going to leave the window open a little bit. I know some people are on lunch break. They may have to leave.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
totally fine. I'm going to be here. I'm going to drop some more social media posts in the chat. I'm going to gather all of this information and make sure that everyone has a copy of every video link. You're going to get connected to Chris. Let me share my screen one last time, because I did put up Lead Your Team podcast. Let me know if y'all can see that on Instagram. So go there, follow him, connect with him. Definitely, teachers, please encourage parents to connect with him, that he and his words can definitely be a bridge. If you're really wanting to know how to address those difficult conversations, definitely go out and get his book. Leave that link in the comment section, Chris, if you don't mind.
All right, I'll put it in. It's yeah, let me put it in here if you guys can see it. It's Lead Your Teen. I'll type this in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'm on Spotify.
Okay.
Every Wednesday. I also do bonus. Yeah, okay, hold on a second. I'm having a hard time seeing here. There we go. Every Wednesday, it's Lead Your Teen on Spotify. I talk about, I do have guests. Actually, Candace was an old guest from a year or so ago. You can go back and see the one. Actually, our podcast is on YouTube, that Lead Your Teen podcast on YouTube. There's a whole hour discussion she and I do about this very thing. And so you can get some more information there. And I would love to have you guys sign up to the podcast. It's family friendly. There's nothing crazy in there. If you have any ideas for a podcast or some different issues, I'd love to know what they are so I can talk about those. And something that I'm pushing a lot, you'll hear on here, is youth violence, what's happening with young people today, and all the violence that's going on. So I do talk about that a lot too. It's a whole nother discussion. But this has been great. I want to thank Candace, you guys being here. I've got to get back to work. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me at leadyourteen@gmail.com. or log on to anything that Candace has. You can find me on Instagram, and I'd be happy to connect with anybody there, talk to you guys, parents, whoever. It'd be great.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you taking time out. Thank you for inviting people. Thank you for sharing everything. I truly appreciate all of your efforts in the community.
Thank you. You too. You guys be good. Have a good week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you so much for joining. Anybody else that wants to leave off, you're welcome to leave off. Don't forget to copy and paste a few of the social media posts and share them. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining. I appreciate it. Y'all can go back to watching TV and join the rest of y'all day now. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to y'all later, okay? Bye. Oh, let me stop recording.